Have you ever watched an entire family of doctors choose prestige over the woman who gave them everything? I have. 3 months ago, I stood beside my mother's hospital bed while machines breathed for her, and silence filled the room where her children should have been. 3 floors above us, my brother Marcus was performing his 200th heart surgery of the year. 2 blocks away, my sister Victoria sat in a boardroom discussing hospital expansion. 47 relatives in medicine, surgeons, specialists, directors. Not one of them came. No flowers. No phone calls. No goodbye. Just absence, like my mother had already been erased from the family history she built with her bare hands. But they made one fatal mistake. They thought the woman who built a $340 million medical empire didn't see what her own children had become. They were wrong. My name is Alana Hages. I'm 34 years old, and this is how my dying mother turned the family disappointment into the only person powerful enough to bring an entire medical dynasty to its knees. The Hages name means something in Seattle. For 3 generations, it has been stitched onto white coats, carved into hospital wings, and printed beneath research papers that changed lives. My grandfather started with one small clinic in 1954. My mother turned it into Hages Medical Group, 12 facilities across Washington, thousands of employees, contracts with every major insurer. A healthcare empire built on long hours, sacrifice, and a belief that medicine should serve everyone. Marcus was the golden child. Cardiac surgeon, awards lining his walls, politicians shaking his hand, his face on hospital brochures like a living monument to success. Victoria was the Iron General. Hospital director, ruthless with budgets, brilliant with expansion, feared by staff, worshipped by boards. And then there was me. Wharton MBA, tech strategist, healthcare AI architect. I didn't hold scalpels, I built systems. I wrote algorithms that diagnosed rare diseases faster than human specialists ever could. To the outside world, I was successful. To my family, I was a waste of potential. Anyone can work with computers, Marcus loved to say, but can you hold a human heart in your hands? I used to laugh it off. I stopped laughing the night Mom chose me. Christmas 2023 made my position in the family crystal clear. Marcus hosted the annual Hages holiday party at his Bellevue mansion, a glass palace overlooking the lake. 47 relatives filled the house, comparing surgeries, promotions, and research grants over champagne. When I found my place card, I thought it was a joke. It was. I was seated at the children's table. Between my 8-year-old nephew and a 10-year-old cousin, eating from a paper plate while the adults dined on fine china 20 feet away. Marcus raised a glass during his toast. At least the kids still have a chance to go into medicine, he said, gesturing toward our table. Unlike some people who waste their degrees on, what is it you do again, Alana, Instagram strategies. Laughter exploded across the room. Victoria smirked. Remember when she wanted to be a doctor? Thank God she discovered her limitations early. I smiled, nodded, played my role. 3 hours earlier, I had signed a consulting contract worth $500,000 to lead the healthcare division's strategy for a tech firm preparing to go public. My performance bonus alone was higher than Victoria's yearly salary. But in my family, tech money wasn't real money. It wasn't earned through saving lives. So I passed dessert to children, while my brother described his latest surgery like a war hero recounting battle. And my mother watched. Quietly, carefully, remembering everything. For 5 years, I had been Hages Medical Group's invisible backbone. When their systems crashed in 2019, Marcus called me at 2 in the morning. I worked 70 hours straight rebuilding their digital infrastructure and installing security protocols that later stopped a ransomware attack that crippled 3 other hospitals. They lost millions. We lost nothing. When Victoria needed to modernize diagnostics, I built an AI triage system that reduced wait times by 40% and improved diagnostic accuracy by 23%. 18 documented lives saved in the first month. 2,000 hours of unpaid work. 0 recognition. When reporters praised the hospital's innovative digital transformation, Victoria said. We hired top consultants. She never mentioned my name. Whenever I asked about compensation, Marcus would laugh. It's family helping family. You wouldn't charge your own blood, would you? I believed them. I thought loyalty would eventually earn respect. I was wrong. A week before Mom died, I received an email. Alana, we need to talk about your future. Come alone, don't tell your siblings. It was the last message she ever sent me. Now, 3 months later, I sat in the waiting room of Morrison and Associates, the estate law firm that handled all Hage's legal affairs, my phone heavy in my hand and my heart pounding like it already knew. Mom hadn't just left me memories. She left me a move. And today the game would begin. The conference room on the 47th floor of Columbia Center smelled like polished wood, old money, and quiet power. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Elliott Bay, grey water under a grey sky. Inside, 47 members of my family filled leather chairs around a table long enough to host a small parliament. White coats, tailored suits, gold watches, surgical confidence. Marcus stood at the head of the table, already in control. Victoria sat to his right, tablet open, expression sharp and prepared. I took the only empty seat at the far end. No one greeted me. It felt exactly like the children's table, just with better furniture. You don't need to be here, Marcus said without looking at me. Mom invited me, I replied, placing her letter on the table. Victoria didn't even blink. She was heavily medicated. Let's not pretend her judgment was perfect at the end. Morphine doesn't make you forget your daughter, I said calmly. Marcus finally looked at me, his expression the same one he used on nervous surgical residents. This meeting is for stakeholders. I am family. He laughed, short and cold. Family, Alana, in 15 years, what exactly have you contributed to medicine? 47 pairs of eyes turned toward me. What surgeries have you performed? He continued. What lives have you saved with your little tech hobbies? I folded my hands in my lap, not in operating rooms. Exactly, Victoria said, so maybe just listen quietly. James Morrison, Mom's estate attorney, cleared his throat near the screen at the front. If we're ready, we'll begin the reading of Alina Hage's estate documents. Marcus waved his hand. Yes, please, let's move on to the actual assets. The screen lit up with slides listing medical facilities, property valuations, research holdings. My siblings leaned forward, engaged, calculating. Every time Morrison mentioned a hospital wing, Marcus nodded like he already owned it. When charitable clinics came up, Victoria sighed like they were unfortunate obligations. No one asked what Mum wanted. They were already dividing her legacy like a corpse. Then Morrison paused. There is, he said carefully, a supplemental document Mrs. Hage instructed me to present after the primary medical asset overview. Marcus frowned. Supplemental. Yes, non-medical in nature. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Define non-medical. Financial structures, Morrison said, established privately. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Whatever it is, I'm executor, I'll handle it. You are executor of the medical estate, Morrison corrected gently. This is separate. The room shifted. For the first time, Marcus looked uncertain. Before he could speak again, he stood, walked toward me and pulled out his checkbook. Let's simplify this, he said quietly, placing it on the table in front of me. $50,000, you leave now, you don't interfere in family business again. Victoria joined him. It's more than generous. I looked at the check. His handwriting was already halfway through my name. I'm staying, I said. His jaw tightened. Then don't complain when you get nothing. I'm not here for money, I replied. That was the last lie I would ever tell them. Morrison opened a sealed envelope with the Chase Private Banking logo. Inside was a heavy cream folder. Mrs. Hage established a private trust in 2009, he said, voice steady. Assets were transferred into this trust over multiple years. The beneficiary was not publicly disclosed. Marcus scoffed. Mom didn't have secret fortunes. Everything went into expansion. She was more strategic than you realized, Morrison said. Victoria crossed her arms. Who's the beneficiary? Morrison looked at me. My pulse thundered in my ears. Alana Hages. Silence slammed into the room. Marcus blinked. What? The trust currently holds 35% ownership of Hages Medical Group, Morrison continued. Transferred in 4 stages between 2009 and 2019. Victoria laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. That's impossible. Marcus owns 20%, I own 12%. Correct, Morrison said, but neither of you are the majority shareholder. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just sat there while the ground shifted under the feet of everyone who had ever told me I didn't belong. Marcus's face went pale. That's fraud, she would have told us. She told the person she trusted to lead the future, Morrison said quietly. Victoria shook her head. She wouldn't choose someone who isn't even a doctor. Morrison pulled out another sheet. A letter addressed to shareholders, to be read at the official meeting on March 15th. Marcus slammed his palm on the table. You're not going to some public spectacle with this. It was her explicit instruction, Morrison said. Fairmont Olympic Hotel, 2 p.m. shareholders, press and board present. I picked up Mom's letter from my purse. The one the nurse gave me as she took her last breath. She hadn't chosen me at the end. She had chosen me 15 years ago. And she had waited patiently for the world to catch up. I looked at my brother and sister, the golden surgeon and the iron director, and for the first time in my life I wasn't the one on the outside. See you on March 15th, I said. March 15th arrived wrapped in cold Seattle rain, the kind that blurred the skyline and made the city feel smaller, quieter, like it was holding its breath. Inside the Fairmont Olympic Hotel ballroom, there was nothing quiet about the atmosphere. 300 chairs filled the room. Board members, investors, medical executives, reporters from Bloomberg, Reuters, and the Seattle Times. Cameras waited on tripods like silent witnesses. At the center of it all stood a stage with a massive screen behind it. And in front of that screen stood my brother, Dr. Marcus Hages, dressed like a man about to be crowned king. Ladies and gentlemen, he began smoothly, his voice amplified across the ballroom. Hages Medical Group has served this community for 70 years. From 1 clinic to 12 facilities, our family has carried forward a legacy of medical excellence. Applause rippled through the crowd. Victoria stood beside the stage, tablet in hand, poised and controlled. Everything looked rehearsed, polished, planned. I sat in the back row, Mom's letter and Morrison's folder resting in my lap. Marcus continued, Today, we take the next step toward global expansion. A strategic partnership that will position Hages Medical Group at the forefront of international healthcare. He didn't say SOFARM yet. He didn't need to. Then his eyes found me in the crowd. Of course, he added lightly, not everyone in the family chose the path of medicine. Some preferred alternative careers, but leadership requires experience in real healthcare. A few uncomfortable chuckles floated through the audience. He smiled. He thought he had already won. Victoria stepped up and tapped the screen. A slide appeared titled, Future Governance Structure ****. As we evolve, she said, we must ensure that voting power remains in the hands of qualified medical professionals. Therefore, we propose new bylaws limiting controlling shares to active healthcare practitioners. My name appeared on the screen under a section labeled * non-medical shareholders ***. Just one name. Mine. A quiet corporate execution. I stood. 300 heads turned as I walked down the aisle, heels echoing across marble. Security moved slightly unsure. Then Morrison appeared from the side of the stage, calm, composed. She has the floor, he said. That was all it took. I stepped onto the stage. Marcus looked annoyed, Victoria looked amused. You're embarrassing yourself, she murmured. I took the microphone. My name is Alana Hages, I said, voice steady. And before any vote happens today, shareholders deserve full information about ownership. Marcus laughed into his mic. Alana, this isn't social media, you can't just say things and make them true. I opened the folder and held up the first document, the gold seal catching the lights. This is a certificate of ownership filed with the SEC in 2009, updated through 2019, validated by Chase Private Banking and Morrison and Associates. Victoria's smile faded. As of today, I continued, I am the legal owner of 35% of Hage's Medical Group. The room went dead silent. Marcus blinked. That's not possible. Morrison stepped forward. It is. The shares were transferred into a blind trust by Alina Hage over a 10-year period. Reporters were already typing. Cameras zoomed. Victoria grabbed a microphone. Even if that were true, she has no medical credentials. Leadership requires vision, Morrison said calmly, which Mrs. Hage addressed in her letter to shareholders. I unfolded Mom's final message. The paper trembled only once before my hands steadied. To the shareholders of Hage's Medical Group, I read, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom. If you are hearing this, then my daughter Alana has taken her rightful place. Marcus froze. Victoria's fingers dug into her tablet. While my medical children focused on procedures, I continued. Alana focused on systems. While they saved lives one at a time, she built tools that save thousands at once. The future of medicine is not only in hands, it is in data access and intelligent systems. She understands this, they do not. Someone in the audience gasped softly. I transferred 35% ownership to Alana not as a gift, but as strategy. Healthcare must evolve, or it will fail the very people it claims to serve. Protect the clinics. Protect the charity wards. Reject any deal that sacrifices community care for executive profit. I lowered the page. Marcus looked like the air had been pulled from his lungs. I met his eyes. Motion to terminate the SOFAR merger negotiations, I said into the microphone. Effective immediately. Marcus lunged for the mic. You can't just. Shareholder with more than 30% ownership has the legal authority to call an emergency vote, Morrison said. It's in the bylaws. Dr. Samuel Roberts, an independent board member Mom trusted, stood first. I second the motion. Hands began to rise. Slowly at first. Then more. Investors, directors, even 2 family members. Motion passes with 58% approval, Morrison announced. The SOFAR merger is terminated. Marcus stared at the crowd like they had betrayed him. You just cost this company $50 million, he shouted. No, I said calmly. I prevented you from taking $50 million while gutting Mom's charity programs. Victoria's face drained of color. Marcus, you said there was no personal payout. He didn't answer. I didn't give him time. Second motion, I said. Removal of Dr. Marcus Hage as CEO for breach of fiduciary duty and violation of prior board resolutions protecting charitable operations. The vote was faster. More decisive. Motion carries, Morrison said. Dr. Marcus Hage is removed as CEO effective immediately. Gasps shouting, reporters rushing forward. Marcus stood frozen on the stage he thought would crown him. Instead, it became the place where he lost everything. I looked at the crowd, at the cameras, at the empire my mother built. For 70 years, I said, Hage Medical Group stood for community care. That doesn't end today, it begins again. And for the first time in my life, no one laughed. Marcus didn't argue when security approached. He didn't shout. He didn't even look at me. He just stood there, staring at the screen behind us like the numbers might rearrange themselves if he waited long enough. They didn't. 2 security officers quietly escorted him off the stage. Cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters shouted questions he couldn't answer. Victoria remained frozen near the podium. Her confidence was gone now. No sharp expressions, no clever remarks, just calculation and fear. I turned back to the microphone. Effective immediately, I said, an independent financial audit of the last 3 years of executive transactions will begin today. Full transparency, no internal handling. That got a reaction. Board members shifted. Investors whispered. Victoria finally stepped forward. Alana, that's unnecessary, we can review internally. No, I said calmly, internal review is how things like this stay hidden. Morrison handed me another document. I didn't look at Victoria when I spoke next. Third motion. Temporary suspension of CFO Victoria Hage's pending audit findings related to undisclosed executive compensation structures tied to the Sopharm deal. Her face went white. "You can't suspend me without evidence," she snapped. I held up a printed email. "You mean like this one, dated January 12th, from you, to Sopharm's acquisition team. Subject line, revised bonus schedule." Murmurs spread through the ballroom. Victoria swallowed. "That's taken out of context." "Then you'll have every opportunity to explain it," Morrison said, "to the auditors." The vote was nearly unanimous. Victoria's badge was deactivated before she even stepped off the stage. Just like that, the two people who tried to erase me were the ones walking out under supervision. I didn't feel triumph. I felt steady. Like something heavy had finally been set down. 2 weeks later, the audit results detonated like a bomb. Hidden clauses in the Sopharm contract would have redirected 40% of community clinic funding into executive performance pools. Marcus's signature was on every approval. Victoria structured the payment channels through shell consulting firms. Legal called it what it was: attempted fiduciary fraud. Civil suits followed within days, then a federal inquiry. Reporters camped outside the main hospital entrance. For the first time, the public wasn't seeing Hage's medical group as a dynasty. They were seeing it as a battleground between greed and responsibility. And they knew which side I stood on. I didn't move into the CEO office. I moved into Mom's old strategy room. Smaller, no city view, just a whiteboard and a long table. Because this was never about the corner office. It was about rebuilding what almost got sold. We reinstated full charity funding within the month. Expanded telehealth into rural counties Mom had been trying to reach for years. Partnered with public hospitals instead of foreign investors. Every decision was documented. Published. Transparent. The staff noticed. Nurses stopped me in hallways just to say thank you. Clinic managers sent letters saying funding cuts had been reversed in time to keep dialysis patients covered. For the first time, I was the sister who didn't become a doctor. I was the one who kept the doors open. Marcus called once. From a private number. I almost didn't answer. "You think you won," he said, voice tight, smaller than I'd ever heard it. "This was never a game," I replied. "You destroyed our family." "No," I said quietly, "you tried to sell it." Silence filled the line. Then he hung up. That was the last time I heard his voice. 6 months later, the federal investigation concluded. Marcus and Victoria avoided prison through financial settlements and lifetime bans from serving as officers in any medical corporation. But the ruling that mattered most was civil. All executive bonuses tied to the Sopharm deal were clawed back. Returned to Hage's medical group. Every dollar. We redirected the recovered funds into a permanent community health endowment under Mom's name. The Alina Hage's Foundation for Accessible Care. It will outlive all of us. On the anniversary of Mom's passing, we unveiled a plaque in the original clinic lobby. Staff gathered, patients too. I stood there looking at her photo on the wall, and finally understood something she tried to teach me my whole life. Power isn't loud. It doesn't need to threaten or dominate. Real power is structure. Protection. Making sure the right thing happens even when the wrong people are in charge. Marcus wanted control. Victoria wanted profit. I built something they couldn't touch. A system stronger than any one person. And that was the real victory. The legacy wasn't saved by a surgeon. It was saved by strategy. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe and follow for more powerful stories of justice, strength and smart victories.